This is the Hype Squad with Charli McConnell, a podcast where women can be full of themselves and brag about what they're good at. Each week, we're going to bring you conversations covering topics like motherhood, life, relationships, business, and everything in between, because anything is possible with your very own Hype Squad. All right, what's up, ladies? Welcome back to the Hype Squad. I'm so happy you're here. Today is a solo episode, and I wanted to talk about drinking. Um, so you may or may not be familiar with this. Maybe you've seen a story that I've done or a reel or something along those lines. But if you have no idea what I'm talking about, a couple of years ago, I decided to quit drinking. And I always feel like I need to caveat that with I'm not an alcoholic. I don't have any history of abuse. And I don't not drink at all. Right. So I use that term stop drinking very loosely. I drink very, very rarely, maybe one drink every couple of months. Maybe sometimes I'll have two, but I hardly ever have more than that. And it's always like I've decided I'm going to have a drink or I really want one or it really sounds good. It's very like based on my mood, right? And it very rarely happens. So I say all that to say I have not completely stopped drinking, but I have stopped drinking, if that makes sense. Um, it took me a really long time to actually pull the plug and like really stop drinking. So it was something that I struggled with and wanted to do for probably years before I actually did it. And I'll give you some backstory just about how that came up for me. Um, and some of the triggers that also kind of kept me from stopping sooner. I can remember friends saying to me when I was pregnant, "You were so much more fun when you were drinking," or, um, even my husband saying to me, "I can't imagine doing this without us drinking," type of thing. And and those are just like very small examples without having to dive too far into it of moments where I was like, well, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I won't be any fun. Maybe nobody will want to hang out with me. Right. And I worked with a coach. It took me working with a coach to work through this and to decide like this is something that's really important to me that I really want to do. And once I decided to do it, there was still a lot of shit that came up, like even after the fact. Um, Social gatherings where I didn't want to have to explain to anyone why I wasn't drinking because either they're going to think I'm an alcoholic or I'm pregnant. And I don't want to have to explain myself. So and I still do this to this day. Like I will get a soda water and lime in a short little ball glass that looks like a cocktail or looks like a tequila soda, which was what I would always drink before. And I don't tell anyone otherwise. So I always make it look like I'm drinking because I don't want to have the conversation. And what I realized is that alcohol is the only drug in the world that you have to explain to people why you aren't using it. And to think about it like that really blows my mind. And there were so many things that kind of sparked this idea for me. First of all, once I started paying attention to my health and working out and eating really clean, I I started to realize how negative alcohol affected me. So it affected my sleep. Obviously, like once you start counting macros and stuff, like it's such wasted calories. Like I would rather eat those calories than drink them. And it affected, the next couple of days after I would drink. Like there were just so many things that it would negatively impact. And I'm like, it's not worth it. Like I would almost always get a headache before I would even go to sleep the night of drinking. I I didn't like how kind of out of my head I felt. There was just so many things, right? It wasn't like it was in college where it was like this really enjoyable experience. It wasn't like that anymore. It was just not enjoyable anymore. And so I I finally pulled the plug and I finally stopped and told everyone in my life, like, I just don't drink anymore. And it's still to this day like a awkward conversation to have. Like, I'm not really a big drinker. And it's so interesting because I've learned so many things about um social norms, social environments. I'm not going to say people because it's that would be too much of a blanket statement. But anytime I tell someone that I am not much of a drinker, because that's typically what I say, every single time the person that I'm talking to will feel the need to explain or defend themselves from drinking. And it makes it this really awkward conversation of, oh my God, please don't feel like you need to defend yourself, like why you're having a drink right now. Like that's not necessary. Or, you know, they feel like they need to say, oh, well, I'm not a big drinker either. Like I don't drink that often. Or I even had a really good friend of mine say, like, I don't know that if I met you not drinking that I would have hung out with you. And I love her and I was not mad at her at all for being so real with me, but she had a good point. And she said, so much of my life is around drinking and drinking wine and hanging out. And if you told me you didn't drink, then I wouldn't think we would have a lot in common. And she's she's not the only one who felt that way. She's just the only one that actually said it point blank without worrying how it was going to affect me. She knew that she was a safe place to share. And it's just really interesting to me how something like that, and it just gave me a different perspective for people who do have an addiction problem and they really can't be around it or can't have it. And I've gained so much respect for people who that's part of their story because I'm not an addict. I just don't enjoy it. And I still feel the need to explain myself. And it still creates awkward moments in social situations. And yeah, sometimes I don't have fun if I'm not drinking because it's not really that fun. And if I have to have drinks to have fun, then I just want to go home. Right. Like that's not a reason why I would drink if I thought that's the only way I could have fun. I just won't go or I'll leave early or, something. And I've had it come up with several clients who have struggled with the same thing, not wanting to drink, but not knowing how to hang out with friends without drinking because it's such a big part of what they do. And I wanted to share my story, my experience with this for women like that who feel like, I don't even know how to do this. My friends are going to give me so much shit about it. What do I do? And I will tell you, like, it takes setting really strong boundaries and really getting thick skin. And what will happen ultimately is your friend groups are going to change. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because the friends who say, I can't hang out with you if you're not drinking, those are like fair weathered friends, right? Those are seasonal friends. Those are not friends that, are really in it with you for the long haul. And so you get to weed those friends out maybe a little earlier than the universe would have taken them for you. I think, boundaries was a hard thing. Also figuring out like what you want your answer to be so it doesn't turn into this awkward conversation. Maybe you don't want to have a conversation at all. And so you just pretend like I do sometimes and you get a drink that looks like a drink. Or mocktails are really popular now. Like it would be really easy to get a mocktail and not tell anybody. For me, I just didn't want people making assumptions that I was pregnant or that I was an alcoholic. So I would just pretend, and I still do that sometimes to this day. Uh, Conversations like that, or, things with your family, if it's something that you struggle with your family, not wanting to drink around them and everyone drinks, it's the same thing, like setting boundaries, getting thicker skin, not letting it affect you, remembering your why. Like, why did you choose to do this for yourself? And really, these ideas and tools you could transfer to any other part of your life that you're trying to set boundaries for. It doesn't have to be about drinking, but you have to be so secure with your decision that other people can't sway you because that will happen. That will happen. They will make you feel bad, or you'll turn into this people pleaser mode and you'll decide, okay, well, just one drink. Like they'll quit giving me shit. So I'm going to have this one drink. And then you're going to go home and you're going to regret it because I did that for a long time. in the process of like making this decision to set this boundary. I did that for a long time. And I almost needed to go through that process to thicken my skin and to fall for the people pleaser part of me and to decide to have the drink to shut them up or whatever. And then to be mad at myself after the fact to thicken my skin so that I could be stronger to set these boundaries. And now it's not so much of a problem. I will tell you, one of the consistent things I had was at home with my husband, not to insinuate that he did not support my decision. It was more like he likes to drink wine and he likes to drink champagne. And he would want to open a bottle and he would say, "Are you going to have some?" And I, as a people pleaser, and if you heard the episode where I talked about not being able to make anyone happy, this is a part that it came up in too. I thought, I'll tell him, yeah, I'll have a glass and then I'll either throw it out or I'll sip it really slowly or not even drink it at all and I'll just pretend. Well, that the gig was up pretty soon. Like he realized, why did you tell me you were going to have a glass if you weren't really going to have a glass? Like, why would you tell me that? And a lot of nights where he was like, I can't let this wine sit. So I need to just finish the whole thing because he loves wine, right? And I used to too. And then my coach, Hal, which if you've listened to this for a while, you've heard me talk about him before. He gave me this great idea. He had experience with a similar situation as ours. And he said, there are these wine cork things called Coravina, and I will link that in the show notes where it basically puts this little bitty needle into the cork. And so you don't have to uncork it. You can just pour one glass at a time and then it reseals. And so the wine doesn't go bad. That was a game changer for us. So now Colby can drink his wine and not waste a bottle. And I don't feel like I need to pretend like I'm going to drink it with him. And everyone's happy. Right. Um, so things like that, I think, are really good tools to share for real life situations that if you or someone is wanting to stop drinking or start drinking much less than they currently do, those are some tips I wanted to share. I also want to say, like, if there's a conversation that you're wanting to have with your partner about their drinking, this has come up in multiple coaching sessions with multiple clients of mine. And I feel like communication is hard. It is it doesn't matter what the subject matter is. It's all difficult because it really takes both parties being able to be vulnerable. And typically the person who's starting the conversation comes into it really prepared. And the receiver, the person who is, having the conversation started with them, they're not prepared like you are. And so they're almost always at a disadvantage. And so sometimes I'll say to clients when we're kind of rehearsing role playing conversations, I will say to them, give them a heads up. Give them a heads up that you want to talk about this so they know it's coming. And so they can be as prepared as possible because no one likes to be caught off guard. And so, one of my tips for if you have a partner that you think is drinking too much and you're trying to have a conversation with them, figure out their communication styles, like figure out the ways that you've been able to reach them the best in the past, maybe about something much less serious. How do they receive messages the best? What's the best timing for you to talk to them? Um, Reading the room, like what's their mood? What was their day like? Things like that. Really being able to approach it from the most balanced place so that you can go into it and have a really productive conversation, hopefully. And another tool that I say too, for anyone who's trying to have this conversation with your partner is realize what your intention is behind addressing it. And again, I say this is like if your partner is drinking a lot and you're trying to have a conversation with them about maybe not drinking as much or something, have a conversation with them, making sure you understand your real intentions behind it. So sometimes our ego gets in the way and we think you're drinking too much for our liking and we want you to drink less because we have this idea of what's acceptable and what's not. But then also, some of us want to be a caretaker. We want to fix people or we want to mother them. And I will say that a lot of times people get really defensive with that approach. Nobody wants to think that they need to be fixed or that you know better than they do about their own life. I mean, just take yourself for example. Like if someone came to you telling you to fix something or that they think you should be doing this instead of this because that's their idea, you might get defensive. I think I would. So, coming to it from a place of if this is your partner you're talking to, instead of saying, I want to help you or I want to support you, say, I need someone in my life who is is less dependent on this thing, or I don't want my life to revolve around alcohol. Um, and I give those examples to say, make it a very I stated thing, not a you. It's not, I hate for lack of a better way to say, like, it's not you, it's me. But come from it from I statements in that you can only show up to a conversation with your own perspective and your own needs and your own wants. You can't pretend to understand what their needs and wants are because chances are you haven't asked them or you don't fully understand what they are or they weren't honest with you. So you come to them with what you need out of this relationship. I need time away from alcohol. I need to be able to have bigger conversations with you. I don't want to go to these parties all the time and get really drunk and not remember what happened the night before. I want someone who's going to get up with me and go walking in the morning. Now, again, you know your partner, you know yourself. If these ideas that I'm giving you are like, oh, that would never work, don't use them. Leave them where they are. But if something from this lands for you and you think, that could be a useful idea, uh, take your own perspective and use it the way it suits you the best. These are just some ideas that I want to put out there of things that have worked for clients of mine in the past and even in my own life, right? So I wanted to share my journey with drinking in hopes that someone who hears this can feel less alone or feel more inspired to take that leap and maybe start to set some more boundaries in their own life. Whatever you want to take from this, take it. And if it doesn't work for you, leave it where it is. I also want to share my own hype list since this is the Hype Squad. And I would say that my achievement is definitely setting boundaries around alcohol and holding to them. It took me a really long time to get there, but I did. And I think that the obstacle that I overcame in order to achieve that was getting this thicker skin, getting this understanding of what it is that I wanted or what I needed out of this, and that I really, truly wanted this. And that everyone in my life was just going to have to get on board or their season was up. Sounds harsh, but we're all changing, we're all evolving. We're all stepping in, hopefully, to new and better chapters of our lives. And the sad part is, not everyone gets to come into the next chapter. And I heard somebody say this somewhere where they basically said, I invited you to the party. It's your decision not to come. And I say that quote often because you, whoever's hearing this and this is landing for you, you are setting an example for the people in your life. You are inviting them to this party. It's up to them if they want to come or not. And if you have people in your life who don't support these new chapters of yourself, you got the wrong people in your corner. Because people who love me and people who I love, I support their changes because it's not about me, it's about them. And they need it or they want it for their life. And I want what's best for them. And the people in my life who show up for me day in and day out feel the same way. So, could take, a radical acceptance of the people in your life and taking a pretty harsh inventory of who your friends are and what purpose they serve for you. I feel like I've definitely gone on a soapbox here, and I hope that something here landed for you. It's something that means a lot to me. This journey that I've had with alcohol and boundary setting, it's definitely permeated into all of the other areas of my life. And so I felt like it was important to share here. And so hopefully you got something out of it. If not, leave it where it is. That's what I always say. So I am so grateful that you were here. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thanks for coming and getting hyped with me today. Um, as always, I am also a women's coach. And so if you are ever interested in coaching in any capacity, reach out to me. Let's get on a call. Let's talk about it. We can always do a free discovery call, which is like 30 minutes, totally free. We'll get on a Zoom call. We'll see if coaching is right for you. And you can get to know me a little bit. And I can definitely get to know you. So, again, thanks for being here. I'm grateful for every single one of you. And I hope that today and every day you are kind to yourselves, kind to everyone around you.